whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai, to know what it was and why it was.
Yes.
So Hatak went forth to Mordecai into the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also he gave him the copy of the written of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hatak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spoke unto Hatak and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come into the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his, to put him to death, except such whom the king should hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou should escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
Yes.
Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me. Neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise. And so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. I want to read verse 13 and 14 again. Then Mordecai commanded to Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall there an enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
Hallelujah.
I want to talk to you on that topic. For such a time as this.
Yes, Lord. Hallelujah.
There's going to be times that you go through heartaches and pains. There's going to be times that you get so low that you feel like you can't get up. But what if God, he says, what if God is calling you for such a time as this?
Yes.
What if you're going through some things that seem like they're overwhelming you? They seem like there's no hope. But what if God is calling you for such a time as this?
Hallelujah.
You see, you can look at Noah. Against all opposition, against the lengthy amount of time that it took to build the ark, for something that had never happened. It had never rained. But yet he said there's going to be rain. There's going to be water. There's going to be destruction. And though the people might have mocked him, they might have laughed at him.
Yes.
He might have become a symbol of laughter. Something that people talked about at their dinner table and among families, saying, hey, did you hear about crazy Noah down the road? He's building this boat for something called rain. It ain't happened.
Yeah.
But you know what? I wonder if there was something deep down inside of Noah that said, you know what? I may be facing opposition, but I feel that God has called me for such a time as this. In Esther, in the book of Esther, Mordecai is talking to Esther, or sending a servant or a messenger to Esther. And he says, if you don't go in to see the king, there's going to be salvation for the Jews. There's going to be deliverance for the Jews. But you and your family will be destroyed. You and your family's house will be destroyed.
Help us.
And if Noah had not listened to God,
Yes, sir. You're right.
him and his family
Yes.
would have been
Yes.
destroyed.
Yes.
The whole human race would no longer exist.
Come on.
The heritage of Noah would have stopped at the flood,
Right.
along with everyone else's.
Yeah.
But because he was faithful, because he believed God had called him for such a time as this. If you look at David, I'm sure there's times that when he was facing the giant or facing the bear, I don't know if there was fear in his heart, but he understood, you know what, God has called me for this moment, for such a time as this. I'm going to destroy that giant.
Hallelujah.
And after being anointed to be king,
Yes.
running from the king, running from the one that wanted to kill him, I can imagine that he's sitting there hiding under a cave or running for his life, and he has fears and doubts. That kingdom that God promised him, he feels like it's never going to come. He feels like he'll never get his crown or never get his throne. But I wonder if he's sitting there thinking, I know though, if I hold fast that God has called me for such a time as this, when I feel like there's no hope, I wonder if God was just sitting there, hold on, David, you can make it. I've called you for such a time as this. You look at Paul, though Paul prayed, God, remove this thorn. I wonder if God was saying, it's all right, Paul, you can hold on. I've called you for such a time as this. You're going to face shipwreck. You're going to face heartache. You're going to face beatings. You're going to be stoned and they're going to think you're dead. They're going to carry you out and start to bury you. But I've called you, Paul, for such a time as this. You look at Jeremiah, and he went and he told the people, you guys are doing wrong. You guys are worshiping idols. You guys have turned away from God. And they all didn't listen to him. And they kicked him out of the kingdom. And they threw him in prison. And I wonder if he ever got discouraged that through all the years of his preaching, through all the years that God gave him messages. And I wonder if God was saying, it's all right, Jeremiah. I've called you for such a time as this.
Hallelujah. Yes,
And God was talking to the prophet Hosea. He said, I want you to go out and I want you to marry a prostitute.
Come on. Hallelujah.
Imagine thinking this voice that we try to grow accustomed to listening to, the unctionings of God, that when He's trying to get us to do something and He's pulling at our hearts.
Right.
I'm not exactly quite sure what my reaction would be if He told me to go marry a prostitute.
Right.
I wonder if Hosea had to sit back and think, is this really God? I wonder. And he goes out and he marries this prostitute.
Yes.
And this prostitute, time and time again, leaves Hosea and goes back to her former lovers. And time again, he gets up in the middle of the night and goes out looking for her. And I wonder, he's sitting there looking and looking down the aisle. He's looking and he knows that he's going to find her with another man. And he's sitting there saying, God, what's going on? And God's saying, it's all right, Hosea. I've called you for such a time as this. I want you to love her like I would love the church. See, there's going to be people that come and they fall and they mess up and they're going to come and say, does God still love me? Does God still care about me? I want them to be able to look back at you, Hosea, and say, you know what? He loved the prostitute more than anything else. And he went out and followed after her time and time again. If he can love her like God loves the church, then God still loves me. Even though I've messed up, even though I've failed, even though I've done things that I regret, I understand that God may be calling me for such a time as this.
Amen.
Hallelujah.